Hello, welcome back. Survival Saturday with Johnny Tiger. Date is November 12th, 2022. I was looking through the self-defense playlist on my channel earlier, and I was surprised that we have not talked about, at least we have not dedicated an episode on one of the most basic staples of martial art training, which is the wrist grab, which means someone come up to you, either grab your wrist like this, one hand grabbing your wrist from the top, or grabbing your wrist from the bottom, holding your arm up in the air, holding your arm out to the side, pulling you away, or two hand grabbing your wrist. We have not really talked about those. Now, personally speaking, I have always found wrist grab training to be a little bit on the hokey side in most self-defense training. Not that the techniques are bad, it's just the way it's being done. Most of the time, what your instructors are teaching you when you do wrist grab in class is you stand here and your partner come up, grab your wrist. Okay, one, two, three, and then you do your technique. This is good for the first month, first 2 months. But after that, this is not a realistic way of training people. Why is that? Because most of the time you don't just stand here and someone come up to you and grab your wrist and then you let them grab nice and tight and then you do your technique and then you stop after you do your technique. Right. Also, the person who grab your wrist don't usually come up and grab your wrist and stand here waiting for you to do your technique. If let's say I'm a bad guy, okay? Let's say I'm a bad guy. I'm in a fight or I'm in a situation where I need to get a person to come with me. I will grab the wrist and start pulling, and the moment the person starts resisting, I will punch them in the face or slap them on the head and then start dragging them away. Right? I'm not going to just stand here. Come with me. I'm not going to do that. Like you only you only do that when it's your children that you're trying to take with you, and your children refusing to go with you. So most wrist grab trainings are incomplete. They don't really work because of them limiting themselves to, okay, partner A grab partner B's wrist, stand still or hold tight. Partner B, do your thing. Okay, most of the wrist grab stuff stop there. Before we go into our wrist grab basics today, let me quickly say this. When you practice your wrist grab, or when you practice how to escape a wrist grab, always think this person is grabbing your wrist and maybe smacking you with the other hand or stabbing a weapon toward you. So when you're getting your wrist grab, always think about maybe you need to put the free hand up to defend yourself. Okay, so this means your wrist grab escape probably should only be one-handed because this other hand might be busy defending your face. Okay, that is something to think about. Number two, the best wrist grab escape. I don't care which principle you end up using. I'm going to talk about 5 principles today with you guys, but I don't care which one you use. The best advice I can give you when it comes to how to escape someone grabbing your wrist is the moment the hand touches you, you go into your wrist grab escape. Okay? Don't stand here and let them tighten their grip and then you do your thing. Okay, that's making it way too difficult. It's not realistic. You need to train yourself to have that reflex. So the moment someone's hand latch onto your wrist, you're already going to your move. Okay? This is the same thing as training how to block and protect yourself from punches. They don't just stand here and then wait. 1, 2, 3, the punch come, and then you do your thing. Okay? You should be able to do this the moment the attack happens without you having to think about it. Okay? So if you want to really train this, uh, how should we say, effectively, blindfold yourself or close your eyes and have your partner just walk around you and suddenly grab your wrist and you do your move the moment you feel them touching your wrist and then you do your move. Okay? Don't stand still. Let them grab you, count to three, and then do your thing. Right? So as I mentioned, there's five major principles in how to escape having your wrist being grabbed and about a gazillion different techniques from different martial arts. So we are not going to worry too much about technique. I'm going to talk you through the five principles on how to escape wrist grab. I'm going to give you the pros and cons of each principle, why we use them, why we don't use them, yada yada yada. Number one, the most basic, the most common, almost like bread and butter of any kind of self-defense system that's going to teach you is the principle of the weak link. The weak link. When someone grabs your wrist, the weak link is the space between their fingers and their thumb. Okay? So let me grab one of these training blades. I can illustrate this better. So let's say when my hand close upon the hilt of the training blade, if I am trying to twist the blade out of my grip, if I push the blade towards my wrist, my hand, no good, because this part is very strong. If I twist the blade towards my fingers, this is not going to work, because my four fingers are very strong. But if I start pulling the blade towards the thumb, then eventually the hand has to open because there's only one thumb there. And the thumb is strong, but not as strong as the wrist. So the thumb, especially where the tip of the thumb is, that's the weak link. When you want to break someone's grip on your wrist, you always want to think about going toward the thumb or the opening between the thumb and the four fingers. Example, I'm going to grab my own wrist here, so this is going to look kind of stupid. Um, if I'm reaching over to my left arm, I'm grabbing my left wrist with my right hand. If I twist my left arm toward my right fingers, this is not going to get anywhere because my grip is very strong with my fingers. But if I twist my wrist toward the thumb, toward the thumb, this will open because my wrist is going to be stronger than the person's thumb. Even if the grip is from under my wrist like this, again, if I want to push towards the hand, the fingers, no good. This is way too strong. But if I twist towards the thumb, ow, yeah, that hurts the thumb. The thumb has to open up. So this is a nice little principle, one of the basics in self-defense. You should be able to identify the weak link where the thumb is immediately when someone grabs you. Okay, uh, this should be something that you work on. It should be muscle memory. You shouldn't have to look at the hand. You shouldn't have to stand there trying to figure it out. The moment someone grabs you, you should be able to feel, oh, on the right are the fingers, on the inside is the thumb. So I twist toward the inside. This should come naturally. Okay. Now, why is this technique so good, and why isn't it perfect? Well, it's good because it's a technique that's going to work I would say 90% of the time, especially if you start moving as soon as you feel the hand grabbing you, before they have the chance to stabilize their grip. This is very, very test and true technique that work a lot of the time. Why isn't it perfect though? Because look, I used to believe the BS that some coaches, some sensei told me that when it comes to martial arts, size doesn't matter. It's not true. Okay, I mentioned this before. It's not true. Size doesn't matter if the smaller person is a lot more skilled than the big person. Then maybe, and that's a really big maybe, size doesn't matter. But if that bigger person have speed or strength or smart on their side, then you and your martial art techniques is not going to be able to overcome their size and their speed or strength or smart. Okay, so you need size doesn't matter if the good martial art, the small martial art guy who's really good is fighting a really big, really dumb, really slow, really not that bright opponent. But in cases where size totally matter is when you both are trained, right? If you are, if you know jujitsu and the other guy knows jujitsu, if you know wrestling, the other guy knows wrestling. If you know kickboxing, the other guy knows uh, karate. Yeah, then their size is pretty much going to be too much for you because now they know some of what you know. They are trained almost as well as you. We are not even considering that they are trained better because that's a scary thought. But in most cases, size matter. Why am I digressing into that? Because I used to believe what my sensei told me. The size doesn't matter. Okay, if you do your technique, you twist your arm, you twist your hand towards the thumb, and your hand will pop out of the grip every time. Until one time that I did this wrist grab practice against someone who, well, the guy was like 6'8", 6'7", 6'8". His hands were like bear paws. So when he grabbed my wrist, he actually was able to close his hand completely. Like if you watch when I grab my own wrist, I actually can't really close my grip completely. My thumb can't really reach my fingers. There's a tiny gap there. Okay, most people when they grab my wrist, that's what's going to happen. There's a kind of gap there, which makes this turning towards a weak link really easy because there's a gap there. But if the person grabbing you have a massive bear paw that envelop your whole wrist, your twisting and turning is not going to really do it, right? Because now the circle is closed. Now there's very little you can exploit. And a person with hand that size usually have very strong hands. Okay, so that's when this technique is going to fail. Another situation where this technique is going to fail is the person who's doing the technique is telegraphing what he or she is going to do. Okay, so rather than snap out of the grip, sometimes they'll go, okay, they'll twist slowly like they're doing Tai Chi. This is okay during practice, but in real life, especially if the guy who's grabbing you is trained, they feel that coming, they see that coming. So if I grab Bruce's wrist and Bruce does the twisting to the inside thing towards my thumb, nice and slow, like he's doing Tai Chi, all I would have to do is lift my elbow and push down, and his wrist go right back down. He's not going to get out of that grip. Weak link or no weak link. So when you do this, exploiting the weak link escape from wrist grab, make sure you do a nice and snappy. Okay? It's not a slow movement like that. Number two, in martial arts like Aikido, and sometimes in Judo and other martial arts, um, sometimes they use a different principle for wrist lock escape, wrist grab escape, which is joint manipulation. Now, personally speaking, this is something that I know how to do, but I would almost never default to this unless we are doing some martial art exhibition and I'm trying to look cool. Because this is what it is. It look cool. But let me tell you guys in a second why I wouldn't do this. So when someone grab your wrist in a uh, 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 situation, someone grab your wrist, rather than doing your twisting your wrist out of the grasp using the weak link, you're going to get fancy. Okay, we're going to use the position of their arm. See, so the person, Bruce, has his arm extended like this, right? So rather than twisting my wrist, I'm going to let this be, let his arm hang like this between him and myself. Stretch his arm like this, okay? And I'm going to take my other hand and pull his elbow in while pushing my arm down. Okay, this is going to dislocate the elbow, right? Right? It should. But this is the problem. Most people, policemen, security guards, military personnel that I've trained and I've trained with, who ever tried this in a real situation, to tell you that most of the time this doesn't work. It's work in the class environment because the person who's grabbing you is just standing here grabbing you, okay? But the moment the person starts smacking you about the head and you are trying to block that and you don't have time to do this fancy joint manipulation, turning and dodging and twisting, okay? You just can't do that when in a real fight unless the person is really drunk and really doesn't know what they're doing, right? So this is something that looks really good, and maybe I won't say it will never work, because there have been times when this could work, but this takes a lot of luck, and also take a lot of skill. Like I'll say, if you have been doing Aikido for 19 years, you've been doing it ever since you were 5 years old, and you're now 95 years old, and someone grab your wrist, you can probably do that really quickly and get that to work. Probably, maybe. I mean, I have never seen that before, but I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. So the second principle is a joint manipulation. Joint manipulation. Is it pretty? Yes, very pretty, especially when someone grab your wrist and you go behind them, twist their arm up behind them. Really cool, right? But how effective it is, it's very highly questionable. Number three, the escape I learned in Shorin Ryu Karate is called the quick reversal. And this worked really well. But it does have some problems as well. We'll talk about that. First, let me show you guys what it is. Quick reversal is when someone grabs your wrist. Let's say Bruce is grabbing my wrist and pulling down and towards them. What I want to do is pull my arm up, and then when his arm's coming up with my arm, I suddenly snap my arm down. That will usually free your wrist because the person pulling and you're lifting your arm, the arm going up, they're not expecting you to suddenly break downward. Uh, if the person grabs you up like that, same thing, you start putting your weight on it, and their arm get heavy, and they start sagging, and you suddenly go up. Okay, so you go in one direction, and it suddenly snap toward the other direction. It's that simple. That's a quick reversal. It's a very good wrist lock, wrist grab, escape that work a lot of the time. And also it looks very aggressive, which is nice. It also allow you to set up for your follow-up attack. So let's say Bruce grab my wrist and try to hold my arm up like that, and I drop my weight, and then suddenly I snap up and I can punch straight forward into my attack. Okay, so it's very good for that. It's very good for your counter strike. Why is this uh, also not a very perfect uh, grab or grab escape? It's if the person is mighty strong, if the person has a lot of bulk and you can't even lift your arm or you can't pull your arm in a different direction, this is not going to work. Okay? So if the person grab your hand and start locking their muscle in and you just can't move your arm, then this technique is no good. Because this technique require you to be able to move your arm slightly in one direction before suddenly snapping it in a different direction. So if you're in a deadlock, if you're being held nice and still, then you can't do this. Number four, uh, this one is also a very good escape. It is a little bit underrated. It's something that we do more in Krav Maga. It's a very aggressive escape. Um, this one is called straight in. What is straight in? Well, think about what do people mostly grab you for. Most people, when they're grabbing you, they're either trying to pull you away or restrain you, which means they're trying to keep you from getting away, right? So that is uh, the ideology, the methodology behind most wrist grab is they're trying to restrain you. So the grab is designed to prevent you going away. The grab is designed to prevent you pulling away. It's not designed from you going towards them. So in Krav Maga, a lot of time we do the straight in principle. Is when the person grab my wrist, I'm just if they grab my right hand, my right wrist, I'm just going to punch my right hand straight towards their face. Right? Watch what happens to the hand when that happens. When I'm reaching across with my left hand, grabbing my right wrist, if my if I'm trying to twist and turn, and this guy's super strong, and none of this is working. I try to do the quick reversal. Can't even lift my arm. That's not working either. Okay, I'm holding on really tight with my left hand, but watch what happens when my right hand suddenly punch toward my body. Yeah, it breaks the grip because the grip is designed to hold you from keep you from getting away. It's not that strong, keeping you from coming in. So when you thrust in, go straight in toward the face or the body like that, the grip will break. Okay, so that is a very good escape. Um, however, in one situation, in at least one situation, this is not going to be ideal. Let me show you guys. So let's say my attacker has a knife and they're swinging at me with a knife and I grab their wrist, which is a really bad idea, but at the last minute I might do that, I might have to do that. I grab the wrist. In this case, I want to extend my arm to keep this knife away from me. So in this case, the thrusting in is not going to work because I locked my arm straight. I lock my elbow. This is not going to, and your fist is not going to come in, right? So this, if someone grab your arm and try to keep you away from them like this, then this technique is not going to work. Then you have to default to something else, like the quick reversal. Now, principle number 5. This is actually my personal favorite, and this is so underrated, and yet it's so obvious that I really can't fathom why most of the self-defense system that teach wrist grab don't teach you that. I honestly haven't seen too many self-defense systems that teach this, and yet it's so obvious and simple. This is the punishment principle. What is the punishment principle? Bruce grabbed my right wrist, so I can't use my right arm. There's nothing stopping me from using my left hand. Okay? So the moment they grab your wrist, rather than worrying about what fancy escape you have or what kind of twist and turn, knee them in the groin, elbow them in the face. Now my right arm is free. I elbow them in the throat. Right? The punishment principle is one of the best defense you have against being grabbed. When someone grab you, start punishing them, start hurting them, start poking them in the eyes, hitting them in the throat, kicking them in the groin, headbutting them in the face until they let go. It really is that simple. Now, I will not say I will not say that this is the perfect technique because sometimes the person grabbing you is not really a bad guy, right? What if it's just your aunt or uncle grabbing your wrist at a party because they think that you disrespected them? They want to pull you away so they can have a talk with you. You don't want to start punching them in the face and go into your punishing mode. This is why, even though punishment is very good principle, it's very aggressive. So we also need to get good at something else that's not so aggressive. If it's someone who's trying to hurt me, grabbing my wrist, I go for the face. I go for the punishment. If someone grabbing my wrist because they think I have too much to drink and they want to pull me away, they want to get me alone, then I just use a weak link, I twist my wrist. Hey, hey, hands off, don't grab me, right? Whatever situation, you need to know the proper response for this kind of stuff. So you don't overreact and you don't have yourself caught unaware, unprepared. Thank you for checking out today's Survival Saturday. We'll be back again tomorrow for some Soul Search Sunday. For now, have a good night.